Hey, happy Halloween! You want to do some creepy projects from my creepy crafts book? I'll just assume you said yes because you're watching this video. So let's do my favorite one, the spider teacup. Here's a list of items that you're gonna need. I'll just let you look at that for a second. And then first things first, you gotta make sure your teacup spins well. This one's an okay spinner, but I think you'll do fine. Remove that pesky label and let's get going. Okay, I gotta make some legs because it's a spider teacup, not a worm teacup. What would that even look like? Oh, right, I'm supposed to be like teaching you how to do this. Okay, I folded my wire at about 5 inches and then I'm wrapping it back up to make a little leg. And then you just snap, snap-a-doodle, wapa, shwa-bam. Sha-sha! You can pick your own sound effects when you do it, but do whatever feels natural. Okay, so now I'm just gluing each leg to the bottom of my teacup, but I'm using the least amount of glue as possible because we're gonna heat this up and we don't want our glue to melt and all the legs to fall off. And yes, it does have 6 legs instead of 8. Did you know that a spider teacup has 6 legs? I bet you didn't know that. And it's totally not because I don't have room. Oh, hey, also, don't forget to set your hot glue gun to low if you can, because burning your fingers sucks. Okay, let's move on to the next page, where we get the epoxy sculpt out, which means also put on your gloves. Seriously, don't forget that part. It's very important. And then we squish our balls together. Make sure you thoroughly mix the clay. And then push it on the bottom of your teacup because your teacup is naked right now. Ew, nobody wants to see a naked teacup. This is what's really gonna hold your legs to the bottom of your teacup. The hot glue just temporarily holds it. And then just use your ball tool to add some swirly textures. Next, you're gonna wanna mix just a little more clay and make a long snake to wrap around each leg, making them beefy. I mean, come on, those wire legs weren't gonna hold your teacup up, which is why I love epoxy sculpt. This clay is so strong and it sticks to almost everything. It might be a little bit on the spendy side, but it's well worth it. Just, make sure that you're ventilating your space and wearing gloves with it. Because I didn't, and I developed what's called contact dermatitis. I know, it's a long word. But now, if I touch the stuff with my bare sausage fingers, it makes me all itchy and my skin gets all flaky and gross. Yeah, and I wouldn't have had that problem if I had worn gloves in the first place. So, don't be like me. No glove, no love. Oh my gosh, I'm way behind. Okay, so before you wrap your legs in clay, you should really let the bottom sit for a day. Otherwise, it's gonna wanna come off and you don't want it to come off. But once you do get to the legs, wrap something small with plastic wrap and then set it on top. That way it holds your teacup up while your legs cure. And the plastic wrap keeps it from sticking. And it helps you bend the legs into the shape that you want. Also, with epoxy sculpt, you're gonna wanna mix your clay in like small quantities. I mix just enough to do 1 leg at a time because it does set pretty fast. So mixing in small quantities makes sure that it's fresh and, pliable. So you just keep wrapping and then smoothing and then texturing and then bending until you have all your legs done. It's gonna take a little bit of time and patience, but by the time you get to the last leg, you'll be a pro at it, I promise. Okay, now I have all my legs wrapped. Let's set it on its little stand to harden. And also make sure that the majority of the legs are touching the table. Otherwise you're gonna have a wobbly spider and you don't want a wobbly spider. I added little feet to the bottom of my legs, but you don't have to. I just thought they were cute. And after 24 hours, your legs should be hard. Only I don't know what I was thinking. These legs are way too small. I like beefier legs. So if you find yourself with teeny tiny legs and you want beefier legs, just add some more clay to it. That's what's great about clay. You can just keep adding to it. I wish I could sculpt my own body this way. Anyways, look, much beefier legs. I mean, look at the calf on that one. Those are some nice calves. Okay, on to the next page where we paint it. I mean, after it cures. Shwa-bam. Okay, if your shwa-bams aren't working, just go ahead and spray paint it. And then I'm covering this spray paint with a metal coating, a bronze metal coating. Our spider's been bronzed. Okay, next I'm gonna add some foil leaf to it. So I gotta put this glue all over. The foil leaf just adds some shiny spots. At this point, you can really paint it any way you want. This is just the way I do it. But if you do go with foil leaf, make sure that you have a foil leaf box to contain the foil leaf because this stuff gets everywhere. It's terrible. Ooh, look at that foil leaf. Now I'm just pushing it onto the glue that we added. Make sure that your glue is nice and dry. Also, you can't just use any glue, unfortunately. You have to use foil leaf glue because it like stays tacky. Trust me, I tried all the other different kinds of glues because I did not want to buy glue for just foil leaf. But really, I have yet to find any other option. So just buy the glue if you're gonna do it. Oh, and make sure that you have your fortress of suction ready to suck up any of those foil leaf particles that want to fly into your house. And look at that, she's looking all shiny and pretty. Now we gotta varnish it so that the foil leaf doesn't, I don't know, run away. Like most of the glues come with a varnish, so just use it. One time I was lazy and I didn't use it, and the foil leaf did rub off just a little bit. I mean, not a ton, but if you got it, you might as well use it. Oh, look at that. We're on to the next page where we're gonna make it look rusty and old. Okay, so now I'm adding some tacky glue inside our teacup. Dang, tacky glue never wants to come out. I mean, it is tacky glue. It's pretty tacky of it to not want to come. Anyways, now you just rub it into the bottom of your cup and then sprinkle on some embossing powder. I like using the coarse embossing powder because it makes chunky bubbles. You'll see in a minute. But I coated the cup a little too much, so I'm just going to make a little bare spot there so it's not all covered in embossing powder. And then you just heat up your embossing powder with a heat gun. But don't forget, we have hot glue under those legs, remember? So you kind of got to go slow. And by slow, I mean like leave some time in between hitting it with a heat gun so that it cools down a little bit. And to make sure before you move it, it's cooled down. See, right now it's really hot, so I know that glue is melted under there. So I'm going to wait before I move it anywhere. Honestly, it's not the worst case scenario if you melt the glue and the legs come off. You can just glue them back on because they'll come off in one big chunk. I mean, I wouldn't know because I've always waited before I moved my cup. Okay, now I'm just adding more embossing powder and then I gotta spank it because it's been a bad cup. So the embossing powder makes it look corroded, or maybe that's not the right word. I guess rusted. So just add it wherever you want like little rusted, corroded spots. Which reminds me, why does metal get all bumpy when it gets old? I'm gonna assume some sort of science or chemistry happens, but I don't know. Anyways, again, keep the heat gun at a minimum because you don't want to melt that glue. You know, take breaks in between heating and cooling, I guess. But don't worry too much about it because like I said, if it pops off, you can just glue it back on. Not a big deal. I'm just lazy and I don't want to have to do that extra step because you got to like touch it up a little bit, you know, around the glue. I don't know, but look at that. We have a nice corroded teacup. Next, we're going to add a little color to it. And if you have teal chalk paint, it looks great as corrodedness. I don't know. So I just dab it on all the little bumps, the little juicy bubbles, and then you just pat it off. That way the paint gets into all the little nooks and crannies. Who came up with the word nooks and crannies? I mean, what's a cranny? I know what a nook is. Oh, whoops. Okay, so now I'm just adding a little more of that metal coating, but you can use darker paint here. I just want the bubbles to pop more, you know, poppy bubbles. And then you could totally stop here. Well, okay, I guess I'm adding some green. I don't know. But you could totally stop here. And your teacup would look great. However, because I used metal coating and that metal foil, if you remember, which contains real metal, so that means that you can paint on some patina to really make it look rusty because a chemical reaction of some sort with the metal, ? You can look up how to make patina, but I just buy mine because I'm pretty sure patina is like a bleach mixture and I don't trust myself with bleach. I'm just saying. So if you go that route, be very careful. And then I let my patina sit for a day or two. And then ta-da, you're done. Now go out and make your own spider teacups. But before you do you maybe want to do another Creepy Crafts project? You do? Okay, let's do some teeth. I call this one the Tooth Fairy stash because this is how I envision the Tooth Fairy holds all of her teeth. Here's the list of materials you'll need. I'll just let you look at that for a second. Was that long enough? Okay, cool, let's get started. So start off with like a blueberry size amount of white Palmer clay, roll it into a ball, and then roll the one side so that it's a little narrow. See, it's like a little blunt cone. Now take your ball sculpting tool and push a little dent in the top. Then put your ball back in the hole and lay your tool sideways so you put little dents along the edges. This will be the crown of the tooth because it's a princess tooth. Now if you have to go back in and make your dents a little bit longer down the side, go ahead and do that. And then using your X-Acto knife, split the bottom into two. Gently roll each side so that they're a little rounder, and then take a pointy tool. A toothpick works fine too. It is teeth after all. And give it a cavity on the side. That's where we're gonna put our string. Okay, now if you wanna get real fancy, and I know you do, repeat the whole crown thing, and then instead of splitting it in two, split it in four. That way it's like a back molar. See, watch, first I split it in two, and then I split each two into another two, and then give it a little tickle between the roots, you know, to smooth it out. Repeat this until you have a whole mouthful of teeth. Next, you're gonna wanna bake them in the oven. For how long? I don't know, you're gonna have to read the package on your clay. I'm not a mind reader, but I do know that clean teeth is not creepy. And I wrote a creepy crafts book. So we gotta dirty those suckers up with brown paint, then wipe off any excess paint. And once you've made all your teeth absolutely disgusting, it's time to string them up. I like to use a thin hemp or twine, but really any string will do. I just like the look of the hemp. I think it makes it more rustic, or maybe more serial killery. I don't think that's a word. Anyways, put all your teeth on the string. And then I went back in and made them a little more whiter, but that was just a preference. Honestly, they look good just as is, but I wanted a little more depth in mine. Oh, hey, Emily. You want to help out? Hey, not the paintbrush. Emily, let go. All right, it's time to leave, Emily. Get out of here. And look at that, we have teeth on a string. You could make this into a necklace or just hang it up somewhere and freak some people out. You know, whatever floats your boat. Okay, and for my next project, I'm gonna do these necklaces. I called it the necklace of sight because it makes it sound mysterious. Okay, you're gonna wanna get yourself one of these little frames. You can get them from any DIY store. I think they're just called epoxy pendants. Usually people fill them with epoxy resin, but today we're filling it with a Palmer clay. Or you could use an epoxy clay. Just make sure that you wear your gloves if you do. You're gonna wanna push your clay into your hole until it's level, and then get your box of eyeballs out, assuming you have a box of eyeballs, and pick an eyeball out to squish into your frame. And then push all the squishy bits that squeezed out from underneath the eyeball with a ball tool. Next, make a little slug out of clay. This is gonna be the eyelid, so go ahead and squish your slug of clay around the top of your eye. And then smooth that seam out with your ball tool and your fingers. Actually, fingers work pretty well too. Now we can't forget the lower eyelid, so go ahead and squish that slug of clay onto the bottom of your eye and smooth those seams out with your ball tool. And then you're gonna want your eyelid to look more eyelid-y, so I used a rubber wedge tool and just pushed the clay around the eye to give it more of a ledge. And then you're gonna wanna use a round tool for the tear duct. I think it's called a tear duct. I don't know, I'm not an eye doctor. Anyways, once you have your eye sculpted, you're gonna wanna bake it. If you're afraid that your eyeball is gonna melt, you can bake it at a little bit lower temperature, but honestly, the melting makes it look like cataracts and I kinda like it. So once your eyeball is baked and cooled, I wanted my eye to look a little bloodshot. So I mixed a clear gloss with red paint and then I painted around the eye. And then you can just go over top with the clear to make the eye look more glossy. Hey, look, you're done. Sometimes the clay likes to pop out of the frame depending on what clay you used. So if that happens, you can just glue it back in. Oh wait, am I making another eye? I sure am. This time I'm using a different frame and a different eye shape. See, you don't have to have exactly the same stuff that I do. Just use whatever you got or whatever you want to use. Oh, also this tinfoil is messing with my camera, so I had to cut it off. Just so you know, that's not a necessary step. All right, we got another eyelid slug that we push around our eye, along with a bottom eyelid slug. Look, I'm doing both at the same time. I'm multitasking. And then just smoothing that seam out with my ball tool. Oh, but the ball tool leaves some dents, so I just smooth that out with my fingers. And then you can't forget the eyelid and a little more smoothing. Add that tear duct in. And yet a little more smoothing. If you're having problems with the smoothing, they make Palmer clay softener that you can rub on, and that helps smooth things out, but you don't really need it. It usually smooths out pretty well by itself. And there she has one eye, but it's not tired enough looking, so let's make it bloodshot like the last one. And if you noticed, this frame has a little loop on the bottom, so guess what we're gonna add? Eyeball tassels. You gotta pick out the right color of tassel. We don't want it to clash with our eyeball. There we go, a nice blue one. And there we are, we're done with our 2 eyeball necklaces. Just think about all the people that you're gonna freak out when you meet them and you're wearing an eyeball necklace. All right, we're on our last Creepy Crafts project from my book that I wrote. Wait, did you not know I wrote a book? Where were you this whole video? Yeah, I wrote a Creepy Crafts book so that you can make your own Creepy Crafts if you want to. And this time around, I'm doing the clay heart. Okay, look, I had cool names for all my projects, but for whatever reason, my publisher didn't like them, so I had to dumb them down. That's why it's called the clay heart. Anyways, this is a good project for using up all the Palmer clay that is really gross and our weird colors, because we're gonna end up painting this when we're done anyway. So it doesn't matter what color you use, which is great. I hate waste. Anyways, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to be teaching you stuff and junk. Hold on, let's rewind so I can teach you the junk and stuff. Okay, stop. I made a ball of clay. And then I pinched the bottom to make a little fat petal, like this. And then I made a snake of clay like that and divided it into 4 pieces. These are gonna be the arteries. I think that's what they're called. I don't know, the little nubby things on top of a heart. And that's exactly where I put them, right on top of the fat part of my petal. And by using a ball sculpting tool to smash the seams together, it smooths it out. Because nobody wants to see a seam in a heart. That's not very hearty. And then you just repeat the process until you have a nubby heart. Let's hollow out those nubs because nubs should be hollow. I don't know. And then take that last 4th nub and roll it into a long skinny nub and hollow that nub out too. Don't forget to squish these seams too. And then I just run over the whole heart with the ball tool to give it a little texture, like it's a muscle, because I'm pretty sure your heart is a muscle, right? Anyways, now I make a little flat petal, not fat, flat. And then you're just gonna wanna push it onto the side of your heart. I don't know all the technical terms to a heart, so I don't know what that's called or even if a real heart has that, but it definitely makes it look more heart-like. And then the one thing that this heart is missing are veins. I mean, we're all a little vein at heart. Get it? Right, so just rope on some veins to the front of your heart and then smooth them out with your ball tool. And look, you just sculpted a heart. How cool are you? Oh, right, but we're gonna turn this into a necklace. So we gotta stab our heart with pointy objects. Well, okay, 1 pointy object. 1 hole at the bottom and 2 holes at the top. Now you're gonna wanna bake your heart. Follow your package's instructions for baking because I can't see your package. I don't know what it says. And all clay is different. But once it's baked, paint it red. And then once it's dry, paint it with a darker red and then wipe that red off. That way the darker red gets into all the nooks and crannies and it makes things pop. And then you don't have to do this, but I went back over some of the higher areas with a brighter red to achieve maximum contrast. Oh, so in the book, I did like a butterfly and a sword, but I thought I'd show you that you can mix it up. You don't have to use a butterfly and a sword because who has that? Just use whatever you do have or don't use anything at all. You could just hook it right to a necklace. So I'm just putting wire through the top hole and then I got my box of, I got my box of plastic crud and I crudded up this wire. I mean, I put beads on it. And then check it out, I'm adding gears this time because I want a steampunk heart. I don't know why, steampunk and hearts just seem to go together. Do they not? I'm not sure why. I guess any sort of machine that can be run by steam is steampunk, right? And a heart is kind of like a machine that pumps blood. But I added one to the other side to make it symmetrical. But you know, you could do anything here. You could do little bats. I freaking love bats. You could just do beads. Ooh, or skulls. Skulls could be cool. You could add little glass vials. That would be really neat. I don't know. You could do lots of different things, just like this bottom. I mean, this time I'm going with a key because that feels steampunky, but you know, you could add a feather. Anything dangly would work. And look at that, we're done. How awesome would you look with this heart necklace? Anyways, if you want a copy of my book, I have links down below. Or if you already have my book, let me know what projects you've done. I would love to know what your favorite is. Okay, thanks for watching and happy Halloween. Bye.